Happy Monday, everyone. I hope you've all had a great weekend and that you're excited and looking forward to a wonderful week. I'm super excited because we're going to be talking about a really important concept here this week, and that is the importance of creativity and creative thinking and the way you apply creative thinking in your life. So I want to welcome you back to the aha moments where every day I share the lessons that I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And so let's get into it. Like, being creative, I think is like in our DNA. It's in our humanism. Like there's something about watching nothing turn into something. And I can remember, like, when I was an undergrad, being in a human development class, and we were talking about conception and how, an egg gets fertilized and it flows through the woman into this tube where it embeds in the wall and turns into an embryo and then goes into the womb. And I remember watching that and thinking, every human being is a legit miracle. Like, just the fact that you have been birthed into this world, you are the result of 50 things that had to happen in order in the exact right time in order for you to be born. It is miraculous. It is unbelievable to watch something get created, literally coming from nothing and turning into something. It's epic. It's beautiful. It's profound. And we have that in us. Like, we literally had that in order to be born, and we have that in us. I think one of the saddest things is when we face a difficult challenge in our life, and instead of remembering that we can create, we can literally manifest, we can literally make something happen that has never happened before, we get fearful and we get anxious and we hold ourselves back. But the truth is, you have to remember, like, in your DNA is the ability to create, is the ability to use your creative thinking to transform your life. I think maybe my favorite thing as a psychotherapist is clients come into my office and they're struggling with whatever issues, right? Like anxiety, depression, whatever. And they start thinking about how to solve that problem. And the most common way they start attempting to solve a problem is by thinking about what other people have done. But the truth is, the best way to solve a problem is not necessarily think about what other people have done, but to think about what you want to achieve and then create that reality right then and there. That is the best way to solve a problem, is to create the solution, is to manifest the solution, is to absolutely make the solution occur and conjure it from nothing. When I work with clients and they tell me their problem and I say, well, have you thought about it like this, this, and this? I know it's going to make a difference when the client says, I've never thought of it like that before. And that's because they don't rely on their creative thinking enough. And they don't rely on their ability to create. And I think that's sad, because that's actually when we're at our best. That's actually when we are at our strongest. That's actually when we're at our most profound. In my life, I have struggled with depression. I've mentioned that before here. I've struggled with anxiety, and I've struggled with real difficult things. But what I did to transform my life isn't look around to see what other people have done. I wanted to create a life. And I started thinking, how can I create a life where there's no space for depression? How can I create a life where I'm super excited to be living every day? How can I create a life where I am literally on fire with love, passion, and joy? And I spend my life in creative mode. And I think sometimes we think of creative as like painting and drawing and art, and that's part of creation. But creation is also the way we live our lives. And if you understand, you're creating every moment of your life. Every moment of your life is literally your creation. And when you put all the moments together, the picture is your beautiful life. So make sure you are deliberate and intentional about the way you create each moment, because each moment creates the entire painting. So pay attention, be creative, and understand you are in creation mode every moment of your life. So that's my challenge for you today. Go through each moment of your day, each moment of this day in creation mode, and realize I'm creating every moment as I live it. and try to make each day the most beautiful painting you can. Thank you so much for being here today. It means the world to me that you are sharing this podcast on your social media platforms and with people in your personal life. Please keep doing that. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Creativity is one of the most important things you can have in your life. It's one of the most important traits you can utilize as you just live through life. And in association with that, it's also one of the important traits that I've learned that you can have in business or in leadership. And today I'm going to talk to you about how embracing creativity has completely transformed my business and allowed us to be in a significant position. Welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the life lessons that I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. So let's talk about creativity in business. And creativity is when you do things like against the norm, when you do things that have not been done that way before, and when you innovate. And I think probably the number one thing that my business has done to put it, we're a huge leader in the field of psychotherapy. And I think being creative and doing things differently is the way that we had that happen. And I'm going to give you two examples for this. First thing that happened was I'm a psychotherapist by trade, and I write books about something called solution-focused brief therapy. Those books and my first book came out in like 2009. And in the immediate aftermath of my book coming out, I started traveling all around the world, doing lectures and being content creator, if you will. And I was so excited because I wanted to reach more people. Like that was the whole goal of writing books. My passion for this kind of work, my passion for people. I wanted to reach more people and make a difference in the lives of the people I was serving. And that passion eventually led me to creating course content that could be delivered online. And that was around 2015. And no one in my field was doing online content. And they were furious with me. Like my field had a really hard time with a black man having a loud voice. And with that black man doing things differently, like taking training content online. And I got hate emails. I got attacked. But I did it because for me, that was the most creative way I could get meaningful content into the hands of people who want to learn how to do the psychotherapy that I was becoming known for. Now, you fast forward the world 5 years, and we were growing slowly. Like every year we would do our trainings and do our events, and they would grow slowly. But fast forward 5 years, and the pandemic happened. The entire world went online, and we had the systems and the process and the content to deliver online, and almost overnight became a 7-figure brand just because we were online, just because we were being creative and thinking differently and innovating. Like it was massive. And I should say two things. The other thing that I did, one of my favorite movies is Ratatouille. And there's a lesson in Ratatouille that says like a good chef can come from anywhere, meaning that anyone can be a good chef. And I take that to heart in my business. And as we were growing and as our business was expanding, I was using a freelance digital creative, a woman by the name of Helen. And I'm telling you, this woman is out of bounds talented. She is just the most creative human being I've ever seen. She is legitimately just out of bounds creative. And she's so talented that I hired her full time. And then within a year, put her in charge of all of my branding, even though at the time she was 24 years old. And people would say to me, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't put a 24-year-old in such a position. You're going to regret it. You should find somebody older. I had people say these really crazy things to me. But a year later, I legitimately think that was the smartest decision I ever made, because the woman is out of control talented. And the work that she does has completely transformed my business and made us a consistent brand. We had an uptick in 2020, but we've maintained it. And a huge reason we've done that is because as a business, as a leader, I think creatively and I think innovatively and I think without boundaries. And I think this woman is crazy talented, and even though no one would do it and everybody's telling me not to do it, I'm going to hire her and put her in charge. And it worked. So think creatively is such a huge thing. It might come with pushback and people might criticize you because you're going to be doing things no one's ever done. But for me, that's how I know I'm on the right track. So I want you to think of a time when you were open-minded and you thought creatively. How did it work out for you? How did it impact the people around you? And what was that experience like for you? I shared mine today, but I want you to think about yours. Thanks for being here today. I really appreciate everything that you're doing to share this podcast. Please keep doing that on your social media platforms or with at least one person in your personal life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Simplecast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Even in therapy, in my work with clients, creative thinking is a very important thing and one of the things that leads to the most success in clients' lives. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is how you can use creative thinking to lead towards change and the kind of change that you'd be pleased with to have in your life. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie, and I'm super excited to talk to you today about creative thinking. Earlier today, actually, I was teaching an online course about the type of psychotherapy that I do. And someone in the audience asked me why we don't give clients assignments to do. I said because when you give someone an assignment, even if it's a good idea, or even if it's something that would work, which of course we have no way of knowing if it would, but if it's something that would work in the client's life, just the fact that I gave them then the idea with the intention for them to follow it removes someone's creativity and their need to be creative in their thinking. And I want to talk to you about the client that taught me this lesson early in my career. So I was working with a couple. It was a difficult couple when I walked in my lobby. This couple was arguing out in the lobby. I brought them to the office and they continued arguing throughout the session. And I was trying everything I could to get them to, stop yelling at each other and stop throwing insults back and forth. I was trying everything I could to turn this disastrous conversation into a clinical one. After about 20 minutes of talking, I asked, how did you guys meet? And it was a question like desperation because they were so being awful to each other. And then they told me this wonderful love story and how they got together. And the rest of the session was beautiful. Like they just talked about how they fell in love in those early days and how badly they want to get back to that. What happened was the wife had met an old high school romance on MySpace and the husband was broken up about it and they just had been fighting and arguing the whole time. Well, when the next session happened, there had been tremendous changes made in the right direction, like positive change had happened. And I asked the couple what changed, like how did you guys create all of these positive experiences? And the husband talked about when they left the session after talking about the beginning of their relationship and the positive experiences they had from talking about how much they loved each other in those early days, something was different. And he went home and they just had a better evening and things were just significantly different. I asked the wife how she knew things were different. And she said, when I woke up the next day, he did something that only someone would love. Like only someone that loves you would do. And I asked what it was, and she said, he made up the bed with me in it. Which was a crazy experience. Like, made up the bed with you in it. Like, what does that mean? And she said, have you ever had anybody, when you're laying in the bed, kind of lift up the sheets and drop them softly on you? She talked about how nice it felt and how he used to do that in the early part of their relationship and how only someone who loves you would do that. And I remember thinking, like, no matter what I thought of, no matter what ideas I would have, I would never have come up with that as something to do. That would be a sign that your relationship was heading in the right direction or a sign that things were being positive as something that would lead towards change. Like, I would have never been able to come up with that. But as a sign of, like, when the couple started drawing on their own creative thinking, they came up with an idea that no therapist in the world would have thought about. And I could tell you dozens, hundreds of stories, thousands of stories of how couples and families and clients come up with their own ideas because your own idea is always the best one. An idea that you create on your own is always the best one. And I think we have to remember how powerful creativity is in our lives to lead towards change. So I want to ask all of you listeners to think about a time that you used your own creative thinking to solve a problem in your life, and how did it work, and what difference did it make in your life, and where did you get the idea, and who else was impacted by it. I think just thinking about those things would be wonderful. So thanks so much for listening to this podcast today. I really appreciate it. I love you for sharing it. If you could continue to share this on your social media platforms with at least one person that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow. But what if you can't think creatively? Or what if thinking creatively is not your strength? How do you improve on this? And can this be a skill that you develop? This is what we're going to cover today on our podcast. And I want everyone to know how to turn this perceived weakness into a strength. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day we share the lessons that I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm Elliott Connie, and I'm super excited to talk to you about this today because people will sometimes tell me like I'm not a creative person. People will sometimes tell me like creativity is not a strength. And I disagree with them. I think in order to be a successful human being, and I don't mean success like, lots of money and lots of status and lots of all that. I just mean like in order to be like a living, breathing adult human being, creativity has got to be a skill that you possess. I think sometimes when we think about creativity, we think about art, someone who could make something beautiful, or we think about camera people who could take a beautiful picture, or we think about someone who can like create something out of nothing, like a sculpture. But the truth is, human life itself requires creativity. Every mother on the planet is creative because they literally created a new person. Every father on the planet is creative because they literally contributed to the creation of a new person, like a brand new human being. And creativity is a magical skill that we have our entire lives. My mother, I consider my mother to be an incredibly creative person. I've never seen her draw anything. I don't know of her to be a writer of some kind. I've never seen her build anything or make anything. But I'll tell you what I did see her do. My mother never made a ton of money when I was a kid growing up. And she had 3 kids. So me and my brothers, we had to live. We had to make do. My mother had to find a way to get us food and clothing. And throughout my childhood, I don't remember having big 7-course meals and a refrigerator full of food. I also don't remember going meals without eating. My mother found a way to create a living experience for my sibling and I. And that's creative. Like, I know that my mother could not create music like Mozart, right? Like whoever the example would be. Like, I know that that's not my mother's gift. Like, that's not how her creativity shows up. But I also wonder, like, could another person have been creative enough with a budget to raise 3 boys in Boston, Massachusetts on the revenue, the financial access that my mother had access to? Because that's how her creativity showed up. That's part of how her creativity showed up. So it's not a question of like, am I creative or am I not? It's not even a question, am I good at being creative or am I not? It's actually a question of where does my creativity show up? And for some people, that creativity shows up in a way that is highly celebrated, like making music, writing books, drawing, painting, sculptures, making film. But in other people, that creativity shows up in day-to-day ways, but it's equally as impactful. I consider myself a creative person, but not because I can draw, not because I can paint, and quite honestly, not even because I can write. Because I do write. I've published several books, but I don't write, novels like Lord of the Rings or any of those things. I write academic books. Where I think my creativity shows up is strategically in the world of business and working with my company and with my team. But in order for you to be able to build on the strength of being creative, you have to first be able to identify that I am a creative person, and the task is to find where and how my creativity shows up. I don't want you to question whether or not you're creative. I want you to examine yourself and discover where and how your creativity shows up. So for today, I want to challenge you guys. I really want you to do this. I want you to look around your life and just think, where and how does my creativity show up? And what difference does it make for me and the people around me? Because I think you're going to discover, maybe you're not a great painter, but wow, you might sure have some other skills that are profoundly touching people's lives, including yours. Hey, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for sharing this podcast. Please keep doing that on your social media platforms or with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that on Apple Podcast. You can do that on Spotify. You can do that on Simplecast. You can do that wherever it is you listen to your podcast. And I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Thank God it is Friday. You have made it through another week. Here in America, that is actually a significant thing because this has been a very, very troubling week for so many. So lots of hugs, lots of love in your life. I hope that you are cherishing time and moments with the loved ones around you. We're going to wrap up our conversation about creativity this week. And I'm going to talk to you about a movie that I think exemplifies creativity better than any other movie. Welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. And of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. So here's what I want to say about creativity. It's like, it inspires me to watch creative people doing creative things. If you're paying attention, if you're really looking for it, you will see examples and opportunities for creativity, and you will see examples and opportunity for people solving problems in creative ways all over the place. So I want to talk to you about one of my favorite movies, which is a movie called Endgame. It's a Marvel movie, and it's Avengers Endgame. For me, this is one of the best movies ever made. I'm going to tell you a story of how I got to see it on opening night and what was in the movie. So spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm going to say some spoiler things. So what happened was I was teaching in a remote place in Canada. You know, movies premiere on Friday. Like, that's actually the premiere date. For me, I wanted to see this movie, and I was teaching, and it was a Thursday. And I realized that even though movies premiere on Friday, they actually show late on Thursday night for the first time. So I'm having dinner with some colleagues associated with this solution-focused training event, and I said to them, I want to go see Endgame. And they said, well, it doesn't come out until tomorrow. And I said, yeah, but that usually means Thursday. We're at dinner, and I pull up my phone, and I look, and there is a movie theater in this super remote place in Canada that's showing the movie. So when the dinner ends, me and, 2-3 people, whatever it was, we drive to the movie theater, and there is a sign that says, Endgame sold out. But I'm so motivated to see this movie, I walk up, and I asked to speak to the manager, and I said, is there any way possible that I could get in and see this movie? And he says, no, it's completely sold out. And I said, I know like all the seats are sold out, but can I even go in and stand in the back of the room? And he said, no. And I watched him, he said, well, hold on one second. And he comes and he says, if I get a folding chair, would you be comfortable sitting in a folding chair? I said, absolutely. I don't even care what it is. So he gets this blue chair and he allows me and my friend to go into the movie, and we got to watch the movie Endgame. So number one, that was creative thinking. I was able to solve the problem of the movie being sold out and got to see the movie. Now, what made me so excited about this movie is if you'd seen the previous movie, which is called Avengers Infinity War, they had a big problem. Like, half of the universe had been annihilated. And I was so excited to watch, like, how are they going to solve this problem? And the movie is all about how they go back in time and change history. They can change the present, which is a creative way of solving a problem. The first thing you have to do in order to creatively solve a problem is to understand that the problem does in fact have a solution. The sign said, all seats sold out. I wanted to see the movie so bad that I had to test solutions. And I had to ask myself, is there a solution here that is not obvious? Is there an opportunity here that is not overtly clear to me? And go off and see. And it turns out there was. Just believing that there's a potential solution increases the likelihood that you will be able to solve the problem. And I believe there was a potential solution by thinking to myself, I wonder if they would be willing to let me into the room, even if I'm not in an official seat. Like if they have to let me stand in the back of the room, that opened an opportunity. And in the movie, there's this huge problem. Half of the universe has been annihilated, but they have to first believe that the problem is solvable. And then one of the characters was like, what if we did this? And then before you know it, they have this really elaborate and cool plan to go back in time to different points in time and change history so that then the present is altered. So think about that as you are dealing with situations in your own life. The first ingredient, the first component of recognizing that I can be creative in solving this problem is believing that there is a solution, even if it is not currently clear to me. And once you believe that, then the problem becomes solvable. So what are your favorite movies? Think about what things you've seen and how problems have been solved. And remember, if you're looking for it, you'll see it everywhere. You'll see in the movie how the person wanted to date someone and they rejected them until they found a way to date them, or they wanted a job and they found a way to get a job, or one of my favorite movies called Ocean's 11, and he found this super elaborate way to pull off a heist. If you look, you will see amazing examples of creativity. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you've enjoyed this week as we talk about creativity and how to apply creativity in your life. Next week, we're going to be talking about overcoming setbacks. I'm super excited to do that. So please, please, please keep sharing this podcast on your social media platforms or with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message. And don't forget to subscribe. You can do that at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Simplecast, wherever it is you listen to your podcast. Have a great holiday weekend, and I look forward to seeing you on Monday.